Congressman, how are things in D.C.?
Well, I'm in Colorado right now, and things are beautiful. I love the weather here. Thank you so
Yes.
much for the welcome party.
Yes, we did that just for you. I got to ask you, you've now experienced the Sturm and Drang of being a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. I'd like to know your impressions so far of the functionality of Washington, D.C.
Well, honestly, it's screwed up. There is very little progress being made on the huge issues. There's some progress being made around the edges, but when we're talking about balancing the budget, when we're talking about reforming entitlements, when we're talking about really dealing with the immigration issue, there aren't a lot of really positive signs right now. And it's frustrating. I went back there to solve problems. I was a district attorney and took great pride in solving problems. And it's frustrating. And it's not, you can't point at any one person, any one leader and say this is the problem. It's just there is no consensus on how to move forward. And D.C. operates on consensus.
I'm going to, and Ken, I feel really bad that you call up and I expect you to answer for the entire National Republican Party. And I apologize for putting you in that position. But I will tell you, Wednesday of this week, I spent the show and part of it's spring forward. So I'm a little cranky. I asked the question, as a conservative person who is a Republican, what in the world about the way the federal politicians are behaving would make me want to support the Republican Party? And if it were not for the great people that I have met here in Colorado in the party, and I include you in that because I'm a fan of yours, I've had a chance to chit chat with you off the air, and I think you're a straight up kind of guy. But when I see this nonsense about the Department of Homeland Security and how Republicans painted themselves into a corner that they then couldn't paint themselves out of, I feel nothing but disgust, and I'm not alone. I didn't have a bunch of people calling up telling me why I was wrong. That's kind of a big indicator. So when you go up there, you already had your hands tied on that DHS thing because that happened. That deal was struck before you were even in office. So what do you do with that? As you go up there to solve problems, is it as frustrating for you to see what's going on right now?
It's absolutely frustrating. I voted to give the Speaker and leadership and the leadership in the Senate 3 more weeks to try to move Harry Reid off the dime and get the 6 votes they needed in the Senate so they could even debate the bill and even talk about whether what the president did was constitutional. That 3-week extension didn't pass. The only reason I voted for that was because the courts had already stayed the president's executive order. And so I felt comfortable that another 3 weeks might give us some leverage. It was voted down, and with the short time that they had, they passed what they call a clean bill. It's actually what I believe is funding an unconstitutional act by the president. But what's the alternative? And that's the great thing about Congress is I get to go up there and I get to vote yes or no. I don't get to vote yes with a bunch of qualifications. So the alternative is that the country will be run by Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid. And Harry Reid is the exact reason that this DHS issue blew up and is the really firewall between obstruction and freedom.
Yeah, but I can argue, and I've had this conversation with numerous people, and I know you're going to hear it when you're in the district. I would argue that Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid are still running the country, even though they are no longer in the majority, because it seems to me that whatever they want is what happens.
I sat behind Nancy Pelosi when the prime minister, behind in a few rows to the right, behind her when the prime minister of Israel spoke. I have to tell you, she was not a happy person.
I was going to ask you if you reached over and gave her some Kleenex because she was about to cry the entire morning.
Oh, she wasn't. She was in a fit of anger. It was a thing of beauty. She kept turning around to the person behind her and she had her index finger out and she kept, scolding and she was just furious. And that's because John Boehner is the speaker and Mitch McConnell is the president of the leader of the Senate. So it really has to do. I mean, are we winning the big battles on DHS? No. They were able to obstruct us on that. But are we getting some things done, and are they not leading? Absolutely.
I was also profoundly disturbed this week to see that one of your fellow Colorado representatives is now saying that Republicans have no interest in repealing Obamacare. They just want to reform it and tweak around the edges. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know who said that, but I think we have to repeal Obamacare. I think we need to introduce free market reforms into the healthcare system. And I have to tell you, if King versus Burwell is decided in King's favor, in the favor of freedom and the favor of not funding these federal exchanges, then I think that's our opportunity to start down a path of ultimately repealing Obamacare.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, I am supremely frustrated, and to be perfectly frank, Ken, I would have changed my party affiliation if it weren't for some of the great Republicans that I've met here at the state level, yourself excluded. I'm not lumping you in, but my frustration is shared by a lot of people in that I'm not sure what the Democrats aren't winning right now, and I feel like I want somebody to stand up like President Obama did in the first part of his term and remind them they lost in this last election cycle. They lost. We won. And I don't see it happening, and it's just really disheartening. I think that's the word for me.
Well, I have to tell you, the way that we win is if Mitch McConnell changes the rules in the Senate to have a simple majority vote on issues like the DHS funding bill. And if that happens in 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, when the Democrats retake the Senate, they will be able to push through a lot more Obamacares, a lot more Dodd-Franks. And so, if people want government to move fast when they want to see progress made in their direction, we also want to make sure that Democrats can't do too much harm when they get back in power.
Yeah, but you know as well as I do, Ken, that as soon as they get back in power, whoever's elected will do exactly what Harry Reid did and snap that right back to where he wanted it to be. That's my frustration. I understand the history of the Senate, the rules of order that have been followed by Republicans for a very long time. But as soon as they're not in power, those rules are crapped all over, and we have to live with the results. And then when we get back in power, they go back to the old way, and we're told, well, this change takes time. Well, people are done waiting. That's all I can say. And again, I feel bad that you keep getting this. Okay. I feel you just got there. I know this. I know you just got there. So, but you're the one I'm talking to. So you just have to listen to me vent my spleen. And I'm sure, again, you're going to hear it around the district as you are home for a bit here.
Well, Mandy, note to self, do not call Mandy's show after Spring Forward. So I will.
I think that's a good idea. Go ahead and put that on your calendar for next year. Make that happen. I would strongly urge you to do that. Ken, we're out of time. I do appreciate you coming on today and taking the heat and being a good sport about it. But it's just, I know I'm not alone in this. That's kind of why I bring it up. If it was just me bitching, it would be one thing. But I think there's a big level of frustration for a lot of Republicans who thought, finally, it's our time. Finally, it's our turn.
I share the frustration.
Yep. Congressman Ken Buck, we'll talk to you again soon, not after Spring Forward.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a good day, sir. Have a good day.